Record on this. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the podcast. We are speaking today with Giovanni Jones. Hi, Giovanni.
Hi.
And we met through Women's Fund.
That's right. That's right.
And we're both class 10.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I forgot to say this before we started. I love your earrings.
Oh, thank you, Target. I think they were like,
I'm always here for a good accessory. Okay.
Yes.
I'm focused.
No, this is good. This is like, I had this pair, they sold them a million years ago and they broke. And then I was walking by recently.
Yeah.
And saw them again. So thank you.
I love a good find. Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you. I love them so much. Okay. I love you. I loved our energy and conversation. We just met for coffee one day or lunch and had such a great dialogue. And you were sharing some things about your life and just so much wisdom. And I thought this is a conversation that I would love to share with people.
Awesome. And can we, and I'm going to need a copy to play it back, especially the part where you're talking about wisdom, because no one in my family would describe me that way, but they're missing out.
Do you hear this and how much wisdom I have? I was like someone I was talking with earlier. My 3 favorite words to hear are "you were right."
Oh,
I love those words. They're just delicious.
I like it.
The 3 hardest words for me to say are "I need help."
I think mine are, well, I say my bad, but really saying like, I'm sorry. If it was something where like I felt justified in it, but it still probably wasn't the best. It's like, so I say, well, I'm sorry, but
my bad. Yeah.
But sometimes it's that you really do need to say, I'm sorry and not my bad. So,
yeah.
But I'm a Virgo, so I always think I'm right, even if someone doesn't say it. Just ask my sister; she'll tell you.
Yeah.
She's like, I think you're right, and I do.
That's so funny. I think our sisters would agree about us.
And here's the thing: we usually are. Like
I mean, I've got good ideas. I can't help it.
That's it. Oh, I think we are like sisters from another mister.
Yeah. So similar. Well, what we talked about that this is that was so heavy were some of the things from your childhood.
Oh yeah.
And trauma that you had experienced in your childhood. And here you are, just lighthearted, joyful, full of wisdom and good ideas. And just I wanted to share like what your journey in life has been like, going from trauma through healing. And so
that's a good question. And honestly, it's still a journey that I'm working through. I'm processing through it. I was sharing with one of my girlfriends the other day. She needed a break. And so my house is the house where if you need a shoulder, a cocktail, a good laugh, you just want to sit outside and just hang out on the deck, whatever, like I'm that house. And so I was telling her, in therapy, like I didn't even get to the adult trauma. Like we were just still on what happened, ages like 5 through 14. And she was like, oh my gosh, like that's a lot. I said, it is. But I know that I've been gifted with grace. I tell you, and even when I didn't understand what grace was, I had it. And I was walking in it, not realizing God is giving you grace, child, because you have definitely like, and what is it? One of my top 5 is positivity.
Top 5 strengths.
Yes. And I was so upset. I was like, I can't believe one of my belief isn't one of my top 5. and so someone was like, you can't have strength envy. So my number 1 is woo, which took me a minute to like, because at first I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling that. But I think it's just, and my mother who went through so much from being incarcerated and away from her child, to being charged with manslaughter. She was scared and had a gun, and it went off and shot my father. And I was standing there and understanding just the way that then I grew into an adult based on those actions, and feeling the need to take care of everyone at a very young age. And there was no one taking care of me. Like, that's how, and people are like, well, I don't believe in this and I don't believe it. And it's like, you can believe what you want to believe, but I know, because of the life that I have lived, it's God. It's greater than me, because there's no way I could have lived through these things and still see the brighter side of things, and still laugh about things, and still hold so much love in my heart. Like, there's just, I could not do it on my own, because I tell you, I get hungry enough, I get an attitude about anything in a minute. So if I can't even deal with hunger, like, how am I going to deal, with these situations of, being molested, and just witnessing violence, and physical violence, and, emotional abuse, and, dealing with abandonment. I mean, there were just so many things. And I, even while she was away, being in a household where you were constantly told, you'll never amount to anything. You'll never be anything. Was called the N word and the B word as a child. Like, that was your name. Your name was not Giovanni. It was the N word and the B word. And the more I was told, like, you can't do it and you'll never be, like, it just rose up in me. Like, how dare you? Like, I'm going to show you better than I can tell you. And when my mother got out of prison, it was very much her mission. And sometimes I feel a little sad, because I feel like she poured all of her love into us, and she didn't get the healing she needed, because all that energy and emotion she poured into her children so that we would be okay. And even that manslaughter charge, like, it haunted her. Like, there was a lady who was married, I'm not gonna say any names, to my stepfather after they got divorced, and 20-30 some years later, she calls the district my mother was teaching in and says, you've got a murderer working in your school district. And now, this is the woman, my mother would literally take suitcases full of socks, underwear, because kids were coming. I said, what do you mean kids are coming to school with no underwear? She said, they don't have underwear. They don't have socks. She would provide them. The holidays, she would take items so that they could give the people in their families. Like, this is the person you're spending this energy to try to demonstratize. Like, there were a lot of things that hurt me about how she wasn't able to get the healing she needed. And she passed at 58.
Oh my gosh.
58 is very young. I'll be 50 in a few months.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? But she was very serious about making sure that her children, not that we just survived, but that we thrived. And I used to complain, because she would show up at if I had a contest tying shoelaces, my mother would be in the front row talking about, come on, baby, tie that shoe. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it fast. Oh, you're doing a good job. Like that bow. Good job. And I would be like, why is she at everything?
Yes.
But you learn to appreciate those things, later, because, like, my friends, like, their parents were never home. They were never at anything. My mother was always home, and they always wanted to come to my house. She was very open. She was very direct. I learned a lot about a lot of things. Like, if I had questions about sex, she would answer them, but she always found a way to, like, tie it back to education. You know, like the song Nikki by Prince came out. And the lyrics were pretty raunchy, and I didn't know what some of that meant, but my friends were singing it. So, of course, I wanted to sing it too. I didn't know what these words meant. I don't know if I can say them or not, so I won't say them. But I would ask my mom, you know, what does this mean? What does this mean? And she would tell me, and she would say, now, if you're worried about your grades as much as you worried about them song lyrics. But she would answer.
Tell you the truth.
She did. She always kept it 100. She absolutely did. And sometimes to like, especially my friends, I'd be like, but then I think I took that on because when I got older and I was at church, the kids, they always wanted to hang out with me, and the parents were okay with that. And I thought that was the weirdest thing. Like, you're letting your kids hang out with this adult, but they wanted to spend the night and would have summer parties. And I told the parents, if they have questions about sex, I'm going to tell them about abstinence. I absolutely am. However, I'm also going to arm them with information to protect themselves in case they choose another way to do it. If you don't want me to have that conversation with your child, don't send them to my house.
Right.
And they always came to my house because I believe I do, but and I also know that that doesn't work for everyone. And I don't want them to be out there. Some people say, but if you give them an option, then they're going to take the option. No, that's not how that works. Do you remember when you were a kid?
Right. Yeah. Well, and where else are kids supposed to learn things? And you had so many experiences in such a short amount of time in your young childhood where overexposed and over learning, it sounds like.
Yes.
And you've created, like, you operate within grace, and it sounds like your mother operated within grace too. Like, for her to come out of prison and be in just such a giving, loving space. I mean, that just seems like legacy that she has provided you.
I like that. I love that. And I think because even now, I'll do different things and I'll see people in the community and they'll say, I remember your mother. And your mother this one time, and it makes me feel good. I started out as a school teacher because my mother was a teacher, and there was just something about the way she was highly creative, and there was just something about the way that she just loved on people. My friends, even to this day, sometimes, we get a little teary-eyed because I think grief there was a time in my life where I thought, okay, I just need to get past it. But you don't pass it. It's not like you pass it and you're like, okay, see your grief, that was good. Like, it stays with you and you manage it. You work within it to not let it consume you.
Yeah.
Because there were some days where I was like, for me, it was we grew up together. My mother, her birthday's September 1st. Mine is September 15th. So 14 days after she turned 16, she gave birth. Can you imagine being 15 and pregnant? And this was in the early 70s.
Yes, we've already talked about your age, Giovanni. It's already out there.
So it's like, you're even the church was different than when you were a unwed young teen mother and you go through all of these different things. It's interesting. And there's I don't know if you know Mr. Haynes. He was the principal, the long standing principal at North High, and must have a photographic memory because I never went to North, but he still knew me. And he was like, I knew your parents. And he told me exactly about a moment my mother used to always tell me about. My father was in ROTC. He was 21 when he passed. I was in ROTC. But the story goes that she had broken her heel. and he was in his ROTC uniform, and she saw him walking down the hall in his ROTC uniform, and he was helping her fix her shoe, and Mr. Haynes saw them and said, "Get to class." They tell the exact same story.
Amazing.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So, like a legacy of educators too. Like
Yes.
she learned about how to be in leadership and a teacher from him.
Yes. Yes. And that's good. And it's I got most of my best ideas. I mean, from her. Even so, I'm one of those people, I'm a builder.
Mm-hmm.
And if I see something that needs to be there and it's not there, I'm going to do it. So I went to a predominantly white institution, PWI, and it was a private institution for college. And so one day I'm in the cafeteria and I was like, "Oh, man, they got greens." So I give me a bowl of greens and I sit down. They were not greens, it was spinach. I like spinach now, but back then at 17, I was ready for a bowl of collard greens. And then I was like, "Oh, they got sweet potato pie today." Sat down another time and it was pumpkin pie, which now my nephew, he'll be 21. He makes the best hands down pumpkin pie ever. But back at 17, I was looking for, you got your mouth ready for something.
Right.
So I organized a soul food dinner. And I heard tell that they still have this on the college campus, but it's a little different now.
Oh my gosh.
I went to one of the cooks who happened to be the only African-American cook on the campus. And I said, "Can we do this?" They said yes. And from there on, we started having a soul food dinner, but I'm extra. So like my sister came and her friends, they like performed a little dance step. And then my brother, he came and did taekwondo. And my mother, the first one, she read a poem by Langston Hughes, Crystal Stair. So she read a poem and like everyone was a part of this celebration on this on this college campus. And I think that's and then I just started doing different types of programming and they let me do it.
Right.
They just let me do it. And the soul food dinner was a huge, now it's very different where I can go over to our cafeteria and I may eat some curry chicken or some chicken marsala or something like that in the cafeteria. And those kinds of things excite me because I remember when that wasn't the norm, especially where there was one day a family took me out for barbecue and they said it was the best barbecue in that city. I ain't gonna say the name of the city, but I said, if this is the best,
you're in trouble.
Right. Next time, just go to the grocery store and let me cook it because the barbecue was not barbecuing. It was.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I know it wasn't Kansas City because there's amazing barbecue in Kansas City.
There is amazing. No, it was not Kansas City.
Yeah. So you're a doer. Like you see problems, you want to elevate the situation, you want to fix it. And I mean, it really feels very connected to the grace that you feel like through your childhood you held on to see what could be. Do you have maximizer in your top 5 too?
I do. Most of them deal with communication. Can you tell? I think it was like communicator or communicative relator, strategic, and positivity. So they all deal
like
with
a power set of just optimism and looking forward and how could we do this better and really, which does help. All of those strengths really help with the journey of grief too. Because it's not a straight path, it's not a straight road. As you said, it's not like you pass it at a rest stop and then you move on.
Right.
Like this strength set, how we're wired, how our minds think really can serve and feed us.
Yes.
Or the areas of opportunity. Because I really believe we're just all wired so differently with these wonderful strengths. But it's good to be aware that maybe a strength that you have isn't one that is going to serve you to get through as efficiently, maybe.
And even sometimes having to remind myself, I talk to myself a lot. And even now I answer back because I don't care. I feel like I'm gonna be 50. I can do what I want. I'm grown. I'm getting the AARP card. Leave me alone.
Oh my gosh, I love middle age. I really do. Genuinely.
Yet you do have to, because they're, just because of the PTSD and someone had to put a name to it for me, because I'm going to generalize and say, especially when I was younger, therapy and counseling and certain communities, there was a stigma attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was not a very common thing. And I don't know who I could have been or would have been had, maybe after the first incident or the second or the third, had I had therapy. However, and thankfully, I was surrounded by, like, when I told someone what happened, they believed me.
Oh my gosh.
Now, the transparent moment in that is the first time it happened, I was 5. The second and third time, I did not say anything because I saw how broken my mother was the first time, and her feeling like she wasn't able to protect me, even though she did something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it was that learned behavior of taking care of everyone else.
Right.
Making sure everyone else is okay. So I always say, Lord, when you send them, when the one that shows up is ready to take, I ain't gonna know how to act. Michelle, somebody to take care of me. To see about my name, to make sure I am not gonna know. Y'all gonna be sick of me. I'll be talking about my man, my husband, my fiance, whatever other words people who are happily in love use.
What?
Y'all gonna be, but it's, sometimes it's a self-talk, because you can deplete yourself.
Right.
It's like, okay, you got to get out of this bed, at least get in the shower. There are some weekends, especially if I don't have things to do, or it's like, okay, I've learned to give myself a time limit. By that I mean, whatever it is, if I'm angry, if I'm feeling sorrow, if I'm just downright pissed off,
Right.
I say, okay, it's 3:00. You have until, and it depends on the level of what's going on,
Right.
to stew about this thing, and then you've got to let it go. And I've done it to the point where now it's like, okay, even if I bring it up again, I tell myself, no, you said you were letting that go. You've got to move past that thing. And it's very helpful for me to do it that way, because if I don't, ooh, Patty Patricia shows up in full force, and we don't want that. We want Patricia to stay wherever she at and mind her own business.
Like, do you think that's the voice of grace? Like, you have only this much time, and what you said, you were done thinking about that.
And that's it. Yes, like, take that moment, be in that moment, and then we've got to move on. We can't get stuck in this moment as much as you would like to stay here, because there, for whatever reason, sometimes you want to stay in that hurt or pain or disappointment, or what. It's like, no, you don't get to stay here, because you've got joy. You've got inspiration, you've got motivation, you've got happiness girl, you've got other business to get to, and Mr. Right can't find you. And you can't find yourself when you're stuck in the muck. So let's get it together. Let's go. But I have to consciously, sometimes I talk to, and I feel like I have good things to say when I answer back. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, well, you give yourself wisdom.
That's right. That's right. Nobody else to listen. Talk to myself.
And I mean, I think that's really important, though. What you're saying is, like, how are you talking to yourself and giving yourself encouragement? And how are people pulling themselves up and pulling themselves out of that muck so they can focus on the joy and what's going right, and really focus on what it is you want in your life versus the past or that current struggle. I did a little Facebook survey asking people if they thought more about the past ruminating on the past or worried about the future. And what's interesting is the people who responded on Facebook said the past, hands down. Like they are at night thinking about and worrying about and fretting about what has already happened. When I do that exercise in person, most people, and maybe it's the audiences I'm speaking to, are thinking about the future and worried about the future. But how we're talking to ourselves through that is so important.
Absolutely. Somebody called it when stinking thinking, but you definitely have to. And I think about what you're saying with the past and the future, and like, you know what? That might, because there are things where it's like, oh, I can't believe. Like I was just telling you before we started, I'm in the midst of trying to figure out windows and siding.
Yes.
And I'm not going to even tell you when I started this, because it was a fraction of what it's going to cost me now. But I was overwhelmed with the information, and I didn't know enough about what to pick and how long the siding should be and what kind of windows. And do you want to wrap? Do you want it encased? Do you want vinyl siding? Do you want this? I mean, and so I'm getting all this information and I don't know what to do with it. And I drag my feet. And so I, for a very long time, was kicking myself, saying, man, if you would have done this a couple years ago, it would have cost you. And now, and it's like, you know what? Be grateful you have the wherewithal to take care of it, whatever it costs.
Right.
So, we don't know what would have happened a couple years ago. Maybe I would have picked the wrong people and it still would have cost me money. And, we don't know, but you can't fix what you can't change. So I'm telling myself, you learned something. Now you got to move on. So I'm working on that, and boundaries.
Yes.
Boundaries was very difficult for some of my family in the beginning. But it saved lives, literally. Because I don't have to Hong Kong Fooey you. I don't know if you remember that cartoon where he would get dressed in the file cabinet and then he would come out. He started as a janitor. Either that or Captain Caveman. Like, I don't have to, Captain Caveman. Like, I don't have to do that to you.
because you have boundaries.
Yes, I have boundaries. Yeah. And I'm okay with those. And it's not up to me to make you okay with them. It's up to me to set them. And then you figure out if you want to be a part of that or not. And I've gotten so good at that.
Oh my gosh. And identifying your boundaries, I think, is one of the things people really struggle with, because we're people pleasing, or we just want to make sure everybody's doing okay and feeling good and giving and pouring out into others. And we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But my gosh, especially ladies and gentlemen, as middle-aged folks, it is time to identify our boundaries.
Yes. And
I think communicate them. I apologize.
Yes. No, that's it. And when you have a circle, I have a circle of friends. We travel together. We've been friends since, most of us, junior high. There's one of them, we've been friends. I was in the 2nd grade and she was in the 1st grade. Everyone else, we've been friends since probably junior high. And I mean, like I say, we have a great time together. And my thing is, if we cannot be 100% with one another, then do we really love one another? And it doesn't have to be cruel. It doesn't have to be mean, but it should be honest. It's, it should be transparent. And I've had a girlfriend who pulled me to the side one time and said, "G, you out of order." Me? And she was saying, yeah, she said, so there was, I had a really good guy friend, completely platonic. I mean, we were looking at you like, ugh. We're more like siblings, but we're really good friends. And she said, you cannot be his best friend and he's married. Because if my husband had another woman that was his best friend, it would hurt me deeply. And I said, I never thought about it like that. I said, because I'm helping. I'm watching the kids so he can take her out. I'm saying, I'm going in, setting up the house so he can have a romantic dinner with it. Like, I think I'm helping. And she's like, no, girl, get out the way. And so I noticed when I stepped back, then my relationship with his wife changed. Because maybe she did see me, even though I was doing all these things, there's still this other woman in my, and I mean, we worked together, we talked on the phone maybe 2-3 times a day, about nothing and everything. When he was supposed to be watching the kids, he would bring them to my house and go play basketball. And my mom's like, you got to stop doing that. Then, like, I would cook for the kids, and so then he would eat, but he couldn't take a plate home to his wife because he was supposed to be with the kids. And so
Right.
I said, okay, I get, but it was that moment of her being honest instead of somebody saying, oh, she's just jealous, and oh, she his wife, she need to be more comfortable in the skin she's in or whatever. No, it's not any of that. It's you need to get out of the way and mind your own business. And so,
Yeah. I mean, it's relationship management and it's
yeah,
communication, and it's you were willing to hear that. You were willing to hear something in a different way. And the person who was communicating that with you, her intention, I think, meant something.
yes,
Like it
absolutely.
was also to help you,
Yeah.
like to help you in your growth and your relationships. And that is really, really powerful
I
because
think so.
this had been going on for a long time. A long time.
Right.
And to make a shift like that in your life, like to recognize, okay, maybe this isn't actually working for all the parties involved. And ultimately, maybe it's not really working for my best friend who I love.
Right.
And that is so wise, Giovanni.
I'm like, I just love the way can you just come to me? I mean, come with me to about like 2 or 3 meetings a month, just 2 or 3, and just help. Because
Let's recap all of Giovanni's wisdom that has come up in this meeting, people.
absolutely, it's like, listen to Michelle, listen to what she's saying. She knows me.
I
She
just
gets
hear
me.
you. Yes. Yeah. Tapped in. You have created in your own home a safe place for people. And it sounds like you do have boundaries in that space.
Yes, I have. So one of my rules is, and I've worked in a lot of different capacities with young people,
Mhm.
but one of my rules is that, and I will meet them. I will meet them at a restaurant. Many of them, have families of their own. They're old enough. They may, they want to order a cocktail, a glass of wine. They're old enough, that's fine. But they're not coming to my house because I feel like that is a boundary that I've set. And they're like, but Miss Gio, you said that when I was 14, I'm 25 now. You're still a student.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, so I do kind of put those in place. And I've even when I was at UNL, I would go to their homes, and I had 3 rules because a lot of them are away from home. And again, we're talking about different cultures and different foods and holidays and expressions that you're used to, and they weren't able to go home for a lot of those things.
Mhm.
So I would cook, but I had 3 rules. First, of course, it was not at my house.
Mhm.
The second, it had to be equal ratio of men to women. So I'm not showing up for the men's basketball team and there's no females there, and or vice versa, whatever.
Right.
And there could be no alcohol even if people were old enough to drink while I was there.
Wow.
And they respected every single one of those rules. And I taught them how to fry turkeys, and I taught them how to make dessert pizzas. And I remember when someone called and said, "Can I get the recipe again?" Like, it touched my heart.
Yeah.
Um, and I would make, just whatever, mac and cheese, all the things that they couldn't get, that they had craved, or introduce some people to new menu items. And so I think from there, I still have a lot of them. I still connect with my high school Spanish teacher.
Oh my gosh.
We still do things together, go catch, we go eat sometimes we'll go to a play. It's been a few years, but we'll go to a play. But as far as, even post COVID, we've like the 25th of May, we've got an event we're going to together and I'm going to drive. So we still, and I trust and value those relationships. And I think with my home, it was such a blessing because people invited me into their homes. Mm-hmm. And I wanted a warm and safe space where, if you're tired, you can go put your feet up and you can go to sleep. Mm-hmm. And my friends laugh at me because, like, if they leave something, if someone leaves a scarf, on the arm of the couch, that scarf will stay there until the next time they come to get it. And they're like, you don't put it up? I'm like, I leave it exactly where they left it, so they know where to come and get it. And they laugh at me because
yeah.
But I want them to know, if you leave something, like, I honor and value you, and I'm going to take care of whatever it is, because I would want you to take care of something. If you don't know how many pairs of good gloves I've left somewhere and didn't get back.
Oh my gosh.
Good leather gloves. Like, wait a minute. Like, these things are important to me. And they know even if we didn't plan on cooking, I could, but I have to learn to pull back. It's very hard for me to pull back because my nephew was like, he wanted to make shepherd's pie. So he texted me for the ingredients, which I thought was great. And I thought about it later. And I was like, maybe I should have just see that taking care of people. I said, you want me to do it? He said, well, I already got the stuff, but if you cook tomorrow, let me know.
Oh.
So then, like, I baked a cake and I smothered some chicken and I made rice and we had green beans and we had mac and cheese and,
oh my gosh,
Brussels sprouts and, and then I packed them a to-go box and a little thing with the cornbread and the, a couple juices.
This is starting to sound like you are a chef or need a food truck.
What I do, one of my favorite things to make is ice cream. I got into ice cream making when my nieces and nephews were young. Mm-hmm. And so the people that know me, like, they'll say, hey, can you make me some this or some that? So cooking is a stress reliever for me.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm very much that person. If I tell you dinner's going to be ready at 7 or 6, at 5:59 or 6:58, like, I want to be done cooking. I don't want to be cooking when people are walking in the door because I want to experience the moment with you. Now, my friends will tell you, I don't stop hosting and they're like, sit down, but I'm enjoying making sure you're okay.
Right.
Like, you need something to drink? Do you need something to eat? I usually make up cocktails and they think it's the greatest thing ever, but I'm just making it up.
I mean, you said at the beginning of our conversation that you're just a little extra.
I am. It's just.
And we can't dim that light.
Thank you. I had a guy tell me that once. He was like, you're just too much. We were exchanging Christmas gifts, and his favorite team was the Dallas Cowboys. So he was single. So I was like, I'll order a bunch of Dallas Cowboys Tupperware. And then I was like, I can't give it to him empty. So I filled it all with things that he liked. And it was like this big thing of just, ice cream, or, I think one might have been a steak, or one might have been some greens, or what, and he was like, and then I had, like, he liked the golf. So then I had the little Dallas Cowboy golf tees and the golf balls. And he was like, I mean, he wasn't feeling it.
Oh my gosh. You missed out. You know what I'm picking up though here is that you give generously and you have so much love for people and you just love and give freely, and there's no expectations attached and there's no reciprocation expected. And I feel like that is where people get people pleasy and become martyrs, where they do things like all this extra, but then on top of it, they're really expecting you to do something in return. And that's just not how you operate.
It's not. And that's the quickest way to get your feelings hurt. Because my mother used to tell me all the time, and now I have to tell myself, What makes you think people think the way you do? And I used to say, they don't, but they should. Because I usually had gotten my feelings hurt behind something. And she would say that all the time. What makes you think people think the way you do? And it's like, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But,
Right.
you know, and it's people, they don't. And I have a very good friend who tells me all the time, like, you should teach a class on this. And I said, but you all do things for me. Like, it may not come the same way, but when it happens, I recognize it and I appreciate it. When my mother passed, my girlfriend that I've been friends with since I was in the second grade and she was in the first, was there every single day, helping with every single detail, to the point where the day of the memorial service, she was practically standing up asleep. And she said, I'm going to go to my mom's house, because her mom still lived a house away from my mother. And I'm going to take a nap and I'll come back. And I said, no, you've been away from your husband and your children every day. You've gone to work and then you've come here to see about your friend. You go home and you rest. Don't come back. Go home and rest. And she was like, I'm going to be fine. But just the point where and then I had another friend who, I'm just going to say, she said, sis, we use a different word. She said, sis, I can't make it to the funeral, but I'm coming now. Pack a bag. I said, well, what are we doing? She said, I don't know. Pack a bag. And I packed a bag and she got a hotel and we just kicked it and laughed and ate and cried for 3 days straight. So I definitely receive from people. And plus I've learned, if you're looking for it, and it's never going to come back the same way. Right. Because if you know, in this thing called life, when we get it right, it comes back in the way we need, not even sometimes the way we want, but in the way we need it to be. And I've definitely had people pour into me. And so for me, I think that makes it easier. It doesn't mean sometimes you don't get tired. Doesn't mean sometimes you don't get frustrated. It doesn't mean there are some moments where you're like, okay, now wait a minute. So again, we talked about boundaries can be very, very important. However, I've got a squad, tribe, family, and even when I think or feel that I'm by myself, because sometimes I do feel it's like parents are gone. My sister lives out of town. We just had Easter. I spent Easter going on a bike ride. It was a very good bike ride till the next morning when my body remembered that was my first bike ride of the year. And I only went 10 miles. I was like, I'm going to take it easy. I'm just going to do a quick 10 miles. My body was like, sis, it don't even matter. You were not ready.
Oh my God. So just a different Easter than
yes,
have had in the past.
Absolutely. And it was still good. I wanted a turkey sandwich. I went and got me some boar's head. Because there's only a couple places in the city where you can get boar's head. And I got a couple different kinds of turkey and some pastrami. Made me Dagwood. I don't know if you remember that cartoon Dagwood. Made me a Dagwood, and it was the best sandwich I've had. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I went on this bike ride, and it was, so I do tell people, if you don't have someone pouring back in, then that's the time to maybe, do a check-in and see if this is a moment for me to give or to get out of the way. Because sometimes giving, it can deplete us. It can drain us, especially when we're giving in situations where it's maybe not the time or the moment. And I've had to learn that for us to give, because I've got nieces and nephews, and they know if nobody else is going to do it, Auntie is going to do it. And so Auntie has had to learn to ask some leading questions about a few things.
Clarifying questions.
Yeah, like my niece will call and, She's like, Auntie, I can't even think of the name of the icy. Kona Ice is here at school. Can you not Cash App, Apple Pay me $6? Can you send me $6 on Apple Pay? Well, why are you on what class are you in? Gym? No, it was a FaceTime. And I'm saying, you don't even have a uniform on. She said, Auntie, we don't wear gym uniforms anymore. Don't nobody do that. I said, oh, my bad. And why are you not participating? Well, we don't have to. So you can just go get a Kona Ice in the middle of gym class? I don't like that. Yeah. No, I'm not going to send you $6. I need you to pay attention in class. And, in my mind, I'm like, where's that gym teacher? Because we didn't have those teachers in class. Kona Ice? Are you kidding me? We had tater tots, and it was like a big deal. Or the little macho nacho. Or the little square pizza, rectangle, whatever. Like, them or the chips, what was it? Chips, beef, and gravy. Like, those were the days when you were winning in the lunchroom. What right. Kona Ice.
There's an icy truck outside. When you were talking about your girlfriend being there and everything that she poured into you during that time with your mom, I actually felt a little emotional because I think this is what you unknowingly are doing and giving for other people. And it's like literally manifestation 101, like the energy that we put back out is what comes back to us. And it's like the energy that you pour into your niece and nephew and like what we put out, what comes back. And I love that you said sometimes it is too much and what you need to do a check-in, or if nobody is around, instead of being in that space where we can just really sink into loneliness. But really, that's an opportunity for check-in, pour into yourself.
Yeah.
Like give to yourself, because we cannot give what we do not have. I say that all the time. You cannot pour from an empty cup.
You preaching right now, Michelle.
Oh my gosh. My face hurts.
Like, pass the offering plate. And that's it. Like if I'm, and that was something I learned when my mother was diagnosed for the second time, and they showed me the x-rays and the doctor says, was it the oncologist says she doesn't have years or months or weeks, she has days. And my feet literally, like, I don't know what happened, but I couldn't move for a minute. And I said to myself, because he kept walking, I said, now is where you pull it together. You don't get to fall apart right now, because there's a lot that needs to be done. And the doctor has kept going. So pull it together and see what's going on. Like, I had to tell no, baby, we don't get to fall apart. And I couldn't believe he kept going. Like, how you tell somebody that and just keep walking?
Right.
Like, you don't even play it off, tie your shoe, make sure
eye contact. Like,
stop. He kept walking. And I saw the x-ray, and it was just full of holes, lungs, everything. And it was a miracle she was still alive. And to her testament, she lived a month and a day to the day they told her. And even when they told her, my mother never complained. She never cried. She never said, why me? And I asked her about it, because I needed to understand where this energy comes from.
Right.
Because I need windows and siding, and I'm about to kick and scream. I'm about to have a whole tantrum on somebody's floor.
Right. Right.
And that's just windows like and siding. Yeah. And she said, I could, but why? And it was to the point where nurses would come in her room in the hospital just to hang out with her, just to hear her. She was preaching to the priest that comes in, and he was like, I'm gonna come back later because I got more questions. And she was doing devotionals with the care staff. And so she said, I do not want to be, I don't want to go to hospice. I want to go home. Mm-hmm. And my family, I said, me, the planner, we need a calendar. We had a calendar of who's coming when, who's doing what. And my job was very good about giving me the time I needed to do what I needed to do when I needed to do it. and there were different people coming in and out. And one of the ladies said to me, she brought me like a gift basket, me. And I'm like, why are you? I'm not everybody. She said, no. She said, this is for you to take care of yourself. Because if you go down, the whole ship goes down.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I've held on to that. I just got chills. And I share with other people because that is the reality. It's not that you have to be fake, because there are moments where we're not feeling our best or where we don't react our best. We're human beings.
Right.
You know, and it's those moments where you push through. Like my mother, I'm telling you, she dropped to about 100 pounds. She was on an oxygen tank. And I laid down one day on the couch and fell asleep. And when I woke up, there was a blanket over me. And I know what she had to do to get to that blanket, because it was in this room behind this thing on the bottom of this chair. And mothers never stop being mothers. My mother has been handed a death sentence. And she's using her last energy just to love me.
Yeah.
Just to love. And when I woke up that morning, and even to the point when the day she passed, I didn't realize she was dying. I didn't exactly know what was going on. And the hospice people, I guess they were afraid to just say she's dying. And you talk about living in the past and over, and it's like, girl, let it go. She knew you loved her. Like, what would you have done differently? It was cancer. Right. There's nothing you could have done. Even if you said, I love you 500 more times, like, you gotta let it go. And she was having difficulty, and we stepped out of the room, and it's like she waited till I stepped out of the room to take her. I said, boy, if this is not, you talk about just, you know, who am I to be loved in this way? That your final thoughts are of your children, not yourself, not you, not your life, but us. That it is one of the most incredible things to me, and I can't explain it or articulate it to the level that I'm, you know. And
you know what's coming up, I'm sorry for interrupting, is that she was her faith was so strong.
Yeah.
And gosh, I feel emotional, but what's coming for me is who you are is you, Giovanni, are a child of God, and that is what she knew.
Yeah.
Like, our children are temporary for us because they are just children of God, right? So here you were God's child, that she was a conduit of his love and energy to care for as best as she could. And so that's how she showed up for you in her final moments.
Yes.
Loving on you.
She did. And there's a lot of, even though she was passing, there's a lot of good things that came out of that. Like, it took me 3 days to ask her about her memorial service. Like, what do you want for your funeral? Because I couldn't do it. And finally I said, Holy Spirit, like, Lord, if you don't do it, it's not going to happen, because I can't do this. And my mother said, what are you thinking about? And I said, well, I'm trying to figure out memorial service, what you want. And we started planning it. And she said, call your sister. And all 3 of us are on there. And she's like, I don't want it to be sad. I said, oh, so no Negro spirituals? Because I'm sorry, there's some funerals. And I said Negro, in case y'all repeat this, don't get in trouble, say Negro. No Negro spirituals. I said, so no pick a bale of cotton, pick a bale of hay. She said, no. She said, I want it to be a celebration. And do you know, after that, people were talking about what a good time they had, to the point where one of the guys I worked with, his wife was a doctor. And someone was in the doctor's office talking about a funeral they went to.
Oh my gosh.
And we had a celebration. We laughed, we cried, and she said, I want everybody to wear blue. These are the people I want to speak. This is what I want done. And we did it exactly the way that she requested. And I have an aunt who told on me. Talk about boundaries, because she is of another belief system. And I said, my mother is open. And this is what we believe in this house. And we're not going to come in here trying to add to or change what is. And she told on me.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't care. That meant she heard me.
Yeah.
If you could tell what I said, then you heard what I said. And I meant that, because I became a mother bear, very much being protective of, and even some people were saying, well, you know, your mom is saying she's healed, she's delusional. I said, why is she delusional? If that's the faith that she has, who are we to try to take that measure of faith from her? Maybe we need to get on the good foot that she's on.
Right.
And, you know, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it was just, we learned a lot. And I tell people now all the time about what you do and how you do, because sometimes people don't. My mother's 58.
So young.
You know, so now I've got a plan in place. I've got my paperwork in order. You know, you got your will, your power of attorney, your oh my gosh, I can't even think of all them papers I had to sign, and who gets what and how. And I'm not a millionaire by any stretch of the imagination, but the relief that comes with knowing what your final wishes are, and people not arguing, not fighting. And my mother did it in a way which shocked me. She told me over and over again what she wanted, and then in the will, she left everything to me. And so one of my siblings went to a lawyer, and the lawyer said, well, you better be very nice to your sister.
Oh my goodness.
And then, of course, I went because, you know, I wanted help with taxes and all the things I needed to take care of. And the lawyer looks at the will and he says, why are you here? I said, because my mama said, not mother, my mama said to sell the car, sell the house, and split the proceeds with your siblings. And he says, but in this will, she left everything to you. I said, Rod, my mama said, sell the house, sell the car, and split it with my siblings. He said, that's why she left it to you.
Yes.
Because, you know, I had so much, I didn't want any of it. Guilt. And people were explaining, well, insurance money is for, I had guilt. I didn't want any, I want my mama back.
Right.
I don't want any of this. And they're like, but understanding people leave that to take care of and provide for people when they're good. I had so much guilt behind accepting any of it.
Yeah.
It was a very tough time for me, to the point where I was in a colleague's office bawling, like, I don't want this money. My mother worked her whole life. You know, she should have been here to enjoy the fruits of her labor, because then, you know, you get part of the pension, you know, you split it between. I didn't want any of it. I felt horrible for a very long time, because I know how my mother worked tirelessly to be able to afford. Like, I didn't know we were poor until I went to college and I filled out my FAFSA. And her and I both working in 1991, our combined income was $10,000. And I didn't know we were poor until people said, dang, y'all poor. Oh my God. Because everything I needed and wanted, for the most part,
right,
I had. Now, I now understand how she had to make a way for those things, but you didn't see, like, there was never a time when I turned on the light and the light didn't come on.
No.
There was never a time when I opened the fridge and there wasn't food. Now, there was a time, which I later learned, and now I eat them like this all the time. Pancakes are my favorite thing. I don't even keep pancake mix in the house. And one day she served them with peanut butter, and I thought it was the best treat ever. I was
right.
And I eat them like that now. But I found out years later she served them with peanut butter because we didn't have syrup.
And in the time, in the moment, it felt special.
It did. It did. I eat them like that now.
It really is a testament to her making challenging times feel manageable. And because you didn't even realize it was challenging. And maybe she didn't even feel like it was challenging. Like that just wasn't her mindset.
That I think as we became adults, she talked a little more about it. And I think she got her GED in prison. So, if you think about job applications, it moved from asking nothing to asking, have you ever been in prison, to now it'll ask, have you ever been arrested? It doesn't even mean, have you ever, maybe the charges were dropped, but if you were arrested, you have to mark yes. And so she didn't show the struggles. And at that time she was in a very abusive marriage. But there was just this, so she learned how to do things. And I think that's how like my side business got started, because she was a very good cook. My stepfather is from Mexico. And so she learned how to make a dozen homemade, and sometimes she'd even make the tortillas from scratch, a dozen enchiladas in an hour, and she would sell them.
Oh my gosh.
And that's how in the beginning she made a little pocket change. And so like when Sesame Street Live came, we were at Sesame Street Live with everybody else.
Yeah.
Not understanding what it took for her to get us to Sesame Street Live.
Right.
And we may have not had 5 snow cones. We may have had to share a popcorn, and she may have put a couple sodas in her purse or something.
Right.
But for us, we got to drink a soda.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah,
Elmo in the audience.
I had a Cookie Monster, Big Bird, Oscar the Grouch. Like, this the original Sesame Street. Okay, people like, who is it? We talking about the originals,
Right.
Snuffleupagus, like and I just, I try to give honor to those things that she was able to do so I'm closing out all her accounts when she passed, and I'm realizing after taxes, she made $1,000 a month, and paid off a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch with all wood floors.
Oh my gosh.
$1,000. And when she passed, and I'm canceling her credit cards and some pretty decent limits, she left owing no man. She didn't even owe on her BP gas card.
Oh my gosh.
And so for me, that set something in motion with being intentional about how I live, because if she can do this, raising 3 kids, making $1,000, $1,000 a month,
right,
there is no reason that my Southwest should have a balance unless I'm buying a ticket and paying it off next month.
Right. Oh my gosh. Debt-free.
Debt-free. And still, if someone needed, my mother would go to pantries and fill up and drive around and pass it out. She kept a garden. She loved gardening. And when she was passing and she kept asking me about the garden, I said, this woman is she's not going to let up about this garden. One day I was up there tending to the garden, and I'm not a gardener. And this lady was like, that's, Miss B's garden. I said, yeah, that's my mother. She's been diagnosed. She's dying. And she said, Then she started talking about my mother. And she said, one thing I'm going to tell you about your mama. She wasn't a hater. If it was something going on and it could benefit someone, she would let you know. If it was something she had and you needed it, she would give it to you. To this day, I can't tell you who this lady was. It was just a lady that was at the bar. But I've heard that story time and time again, and I know it to be true. Even if you didn't know you needed it, she intuitively knew and had it for you. And it was not uncommon for, her to just do these things. Like I said, just, drive around. I have a cousin that has special needs. My mom would give her all my old prom dresses, and they would get dressed up and go like to different happy hours and out to eat. And at first I was like, I'm just gonna give her my dress. But it's like, you're not wearing it, girl. Let it go.
Right.
And my cousin in these photos would be so happy because someone is taking the time to do something. And they, I mean, when I say they got dressed up, honey, heels and all.
Oh, that's so great.
And so,
Generous. So
yeah,
generous.
yeah. So said,
So
okay,
generous.
I'm okay, I guess, with her giving my stuff away that was left in her house forever.
It's part of her legacy. It's part of what she has left the community, and certainly imparted on you and what you're sharing with everybody else that you give so generously too.
Well, thank you,
Love
kind.
that.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who finds themselves right now listening to this? They have some hope now, they have some inspiration. What would your parting words to them be if they've fallen on some tough times and they're just trying to figure out what's next?
And it's a song and it's a cliche, but it's also very true. And it is that trouble doesn't last always. I well, I left the job because the choice was coming down the pipeline. Either we're gonna ask you to leave or you leave before we ask you to leave. For 8 months, I had no job. I applied for a job packing boxes. I'm not gonna say where. Packing boxes. I could not get hired packing boxes. And the Lord shared with me, I wouldn't lose my house. And at that time I had a car payment. I don't anymore. Thank you. But my car is very old. And I wouldn't lose my car. And I had to learn to lean into and on something besides this. Because in full transparency, there was a moment where I pulled in my garage and I realized I was worth more dead than alive. And I had to have a conversation with myself about how, even though on paper that might be true, it would leave people devastated.
Right.
And I knew the hurt I was feeling, and I did not want anyone to feel that level of hurt. So I had to learn to lean on and lean into other things. And I always say, people that are not believers, I don't know how they do it. Because for me, it is Christ. And he sends people. It may be people it may be perfect strangers, but it's like you have to hold on to, well, in this moment, I feel this way, but I haven't always felt this way. It hasn't always been this way. And it is a moment. And when we're in it, it's like you can't see around it or over it or through it or under it. And that's where, like, you're talking about, that faith comes in. Like you have to believe that there is something beyond this. And I tell people that, like, it don't end like this.
Oh my God.
We are attached to purpose. And it don't end like this. And we just gotta, as they used to say, tie a knot and hang on. Woo.
Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. And you've talked about faith throughout the whole conversation, and clearly that has been a foundational component that has seen you through everything and provided the grace and kept you open to love and purpose. And I love that you said you are just in this moment. Like this, it's literally this too shall pass. And we don't know how at the rate or how quick it will happen or how long this chapter will be. There will be another side. There will be an around it and over it. And really so I mean, really, that's grace in that moment of, on paper, I'm, quote, worth more dead than alive, but then having that realization that that is not your worth.
Right.
What's in your bank account is not your worth. It's
Yeah.
so profound. And I know that your words today have reached exactly the people that needed to hear it. Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. And I'm so grateful to you.
And thank you. Michelle, you are just amazing is like an understatement.
Um,
You have this warmth about you that says it's okay. It is okay. And I feel like people can come to you what is in their mind the most atrocious story, and it's okay.
mm,
It's okay. And that non-judgment, wow. Wow, just this, you just exude like, I got you. All is well. Wow, you have a peace about you that I love it. I love you.
thank
You're just
you.
amazing. You just and watching you do these interviews and conferences, and it's like what I would love to be in the room sometime. So I could just soak up just a little bit more. A
Let's
little
do
bit more, Michelle.
Take the show on the road.
That's it. So yeah, I'll be tuning in from now because I just a little bit more.
Oh
I
my
just need a
gosh.
little bit more, Michelle.
I received that. Thank you so much. I too am a child of God, and I am a co-creator, and I am just doing the best I can, moving at the speed of operation, or the information, speed of information. And, I'm just showing up,
That's it.
just showing up. So thank you. Thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes.